This podcast is a production of Unfiltered Studios. If you would like to know more about joining Unfiltered Studios, please visit our website at unfpod.com for more information.
Welcome back to the show, Bruno. Oh man, I gotta make another movie with Julia Roberts. Jesus Christ Almighty!
So yeah, I just had to talk about him. I was just like, what won't he be in? I mean, he's been in all kinds of John Milius blockbusters, and then was with Walter Hill for a while in those 48-hour movies, and then, like you say, he just does all these movies with Barbara Streisand and hates working with Julia Roberts, and then just other unpredictable movies with Paul Schrader of all people. He gets like,
oh yeah,
and I take it you saw his TV miniseries Rich Man Poor Man back in the day.
I didn't get to see it. I got to see it later on when they repeated it on, I don't know what cable station.
A&E probably.
They did. And I remember him fighting, I think, William Smith in that movie.
Yeah.
As Falconetti. In fact, he beats the shit out of Nolte, I think. And all I remember is, like, he made his name in that. And then he did, like, I think he did Who'll Stop the Rain.
What a great movie, yeah.
Yeah.
Doesn't get talked about much.
Doesn't get talked about much. Then he does, I'm trying to think, he starts making a name for himself.
So many low-key 70s like TV movies and Roger Corman films.
He doesn't do I don't think he worked with Corman. I think he did a lot of like one-off stuff. I keep thinking he was in I keep thinking he was in Big Wednesday for some reason.
It's because Gary Busey, same guy to Dill. It's just John Milius using him. But my bad. Return to Macon County was not by him, but I thought it was. Okay.
No. And then I was like, looking at his like his stuff, and I remember like seeing like he was in that movie. I was like, oh my god, I can't believe he was in that movie, because he was like in that whole Gary Busey mode of I'll take whatever I get and just make it my own.
Yeah.
He does. I know he does North Dallas 40. That's one of his best movies.
Totally.
He does that. He does 48 Hours. He does Teachers. And he does Down and Out in Beverly Hills.
Has some underseen roles like on The Deep and
California God, that
Kid.
movie. Yeah, that movie was unbelievable, The Deep. I think that's one of Robert Shaw's last movies, too, from what I remember.
I believe so, yeah. And then before you get into dorky stuff like Down and Out in Beverly Hills and Free Fugitives, it's like he just knows how to just encompass these various roles. So,
remember he does Under Fire.
Under Fire, Mulholland Falls, Jefferson in Paris. It's just like, just the go-to for just uncanny roles. And yet, you say, you can make fun of him in a Gary Busey way, and at the same time, you can also acknowledge how he just brings those atypical roles to life.
Well, he played Neil Cassidy.
Yeah.
In Heartbeat, which I thought was a really brave thing to do, because I don't think anybody could play Neil Cassidy from what I've read about him. Being as crazy as he was.
Yeah, totally. And while we like to even make fun and act like he's, looks like he's drunk or homeless half the time, he's like, no, he really is the rare kind of guy who can do little small subtleties that really do make movie that greater.
Look at what he did with The Mandalorian.
Yeah. Who
he
would have
wasn't even
guessed?
in the freaking costume. He was just doing the voice work. But it was like, I'm going, oh my God, it's Nick Nolte as an Ugnaught. And I'm like, it is Nick Nolte as an Ugnaught, you know?
Yeah, he just didn't. He always knows how to disguise his voice, even once in a while too, where you're
Yeah.
like, yeah, that
Yeah.
is him.
Do you remember that movie he did called Weeds?
Yes, a young Ernie Hudson prison reform drama. Yeah,
That movie was like very like eye-opening when you watch it.
yeah,
Because here's this guy in this prison and he's doing these plays, and then the minute he gets out on the outside, it's like he's great at doing this stuff with the prisoners, but when it comes to the outside, people don't really trust him. You know,
no.
people think he's a one trick pony. You know, but
It, it talks about all these things that no one really wants to talk about in a very
yeah,
positive way.
yeah. I always think like the one thing that gets me is he does. I didn't know he was an Electric Glide in Blue.
Yeah, that's kind
I
of an
was,
underseen movie, in all fairness.
you know, yeah, with whatchamacallit, Robert Blake as the cop.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I didn't know he was in that, and I didn't know he was in Northville Cemetery Massacre. I saw that on a
I think he's just
DVD.
a voice, but it's a key voice.
Yeah, yeah. Because I hear it and I'm like, what the hell, Nick Nolte? I'm like, nah, I can't be Nick Nolte. And like all of a sudden you're like, wait a minute, that is Nick Nolte. That's one of those things where you're like, wait, he did that, you know?
Totally. And even when he does roles which are just kind of featured cameos or what have you, I never regret seeing him because I just know that one way or another, he really did play into it pretty well. I actually thought A Walk in the Woods and Head Full of Honey were very underrated. It just,
Yeah, Walk in the Woods was really funny. I thought that was really, really funny.
yeah.
And I think him coming into that role that was meant for Paul Newman, from what I understand,
That makes sense.
you know, that really got me, because it was supposed to be him and Redford doing that.
We'll return after these messages.
If you like small town mystery, crazy news, and wild history, then the Florida Men on Florida Man podcast is for you. Each week, Josh Mills and Wayne McCarty bring you the absolute best Florida has to offer. So if you're looking for a show that's safe for the family, but funny enough to help you escape everyday life, then listen to the Florida Men on Florida Man podcast. That's Florida Men, plural, on Florida Man podcast.
Do you ever find yourself thinking about who would win in a fight between Goku and Superman? Hi, I'm James Gavsey, and on the Who Would Win show, me and my co-host Ray ignore anything important happening in the outside world and debate fictional battles between characters from comics, movies, and video games.
We got a new show every week, and almost always am I the winner.
Yeah, not true, Ray.
In the past, we've discussed such matches as Captain America versus Darth Vader, Solid Snake versus the Iron Giant, classic matchups like RoboCop versus Terminator, and even the Muppets versus Sesame Street.
That one was crazy. So if you're a fan of geek culture and love a spirited debate, check out the Who Would Win show wherever you get your podcasts, or check us out at whowouldwinshow.com.
And he just does something for everybody. So he'll do a bit part in something like The Beautiful Country or Hotel Rwanda, an art house movie. Never Was, I think, is a fun movie. And then does some better known blockbuster like Tropic Thunder or Warrior. And then does all these dorky kids movies, and you don't have to worry about what he's saying really. And then I love how every once in a while they will give him a recurring TV gig. Like Graves is a pretty amusing satire from the clips I've seen. That
was something that kind of got lost in the shuffle with him.
And he does, like you say, all these roles that are very tough to define, let alone hard for anyone to really play. And we kind of just oversee him because we're just so used to his usual over-the-top demeanor that it's like, yeah, he needs a little more credibility, and applause given his way.
Well, I think about it this way. He was part of that young generation of, like, the Harrison Ford, that whole didn't have the looks,
Yeah.
but had the demeanor,
After mid-70s, he just gets even rougher.
rougher, he grows the mustache, he's got the long hair. North Dallas 40 is the one that I love him in, because it was kind of like, every football player, that's based on the Cowboys. That's based on it. I don't know who wrote the book on that. But from what I understand, a lot of people that were in the NFL were like, oh yeah, no, that's what really happens. You're still trying to, milk your body.
Yeah.
And, his character is just like, a walking, bandage.
It
It's
really
just like,
is. Yeah.
But I always loved him. I loved him in Farewell to the King.
Yes.
That's a movie I love. And I liked him in
fighting his own
Cannery
war.
Row.
Canary Row is
Yeah.
interesting, and that's a movie that
Cannery
gets a lot
Row.
of flack.
That's a movie that got a lot of flack, but not only that, it got a lot of attention because you know the story about Raquel Welch, right?
Mm-hmm.
She was fired, and they gave Winger the role because she was 15 years younger, and that was like the first time like somebody brought the production to court about age discrimination. But I can't see her playing that role. Deborah Winger was meant for that role.
Well, and more or less, I mean, they had worked together before, and so it was just a matter of, it's like, okay, we're going to work together again.
Yeah, I think he was great in Blue Chips.
Yeah, Blue Chips is a funny one. And that's another one. It's just William Friedkin, working out of his usual comfort zone. He usually does adventure movies and horror films, and here he is saying, yeah, let's do this guy movie.
Prince of Tides, I was kind of like, you're working against Streisand. You're working against the Mount Rushmore of actresses. I'm not saying she's a bad actress. I'm saying she's a force of nature unto herself.
A lot to go against.
Yeah. And he's also got to work with George Carlin, who's in that movie, who plays the gay landlord or the neighbor or something like that.
Yeah.
And then he's got to work with Kate Nelligan too. And not only that, he's got to work on work off of a Conrack script, a Conrack book, which is not easy to do. You've got the great Santini, you've got Conrack, and you've got this. I don't know what else was left, but I was like sitting there and I'm like, I watched like the first 15. I'm like, he's not going to be able to make this. He's going to, at some point he kind of like gave up and was like, fuck it,
The last thing anyone needs to do is worry about whether or not they're becoming the character. Just don't look like a fool,
Yeah. Yeah. Now he did a movie called I'll Do Anything.
Yes.
Was that the one that was supposed to be a musical and they cut it?
I'm not sure, but I know that's like the one I think that he and Julia Roberts just basically just did not get along on. Or no, my bad. That's the Albert Brooks movie.
I Love Trouble was the...
That's that one. My bad.
Yeah, I Love Trouble was the one like him and Julia Roberts were like ready to kill each other, and they made it out to be like they're like, they're wacky, like, a wacky sidekick, two reporters, and it's like you can tell there was no chemistry.
Right.
And they cut it, there was chemistry, but my cousin interviewed Julia Roberts.
Oh, nice.
And said she's like a real ditz. You can quote me on that.
Yeah,
but,
no, I think we've all heard that, and it's kind of a Tom Cruise thing where the persona is just so over the top off screen that it's hard to prejudge a movie that even if they're working against type or they did get along with on that set. It just, the bad vibes just kind of carried on through. And so it is one of those, is like, even, I like the second 48 Hours, even though it often gets mocked quite a lot, just because it's held up, I think, way better in coming pressing times. And I like how basically after a while the movie kind of acknowledges it's a rehash, and so they're going to end it the same over the top way. I'm going to shoot through my partner the same exact way and kill the bad guy in the bar.
Yeah. And if you watch that movie, like Murphy wasn't exactly in his best position
Comedic
at that
range.
point.
No.
Yeah, I know. It's like
and so, yeah, you got to just throw away the comedy. You're like, okay, if there's one thing that is not working, the comedy from movie one is not working. So just go to this for the action and the other just outrageous remarks.
Yeah. And I think the one thing that kind of sets me is that he does another 48 Hours. That bombs, or that doesn't do that good review-wise. It did make its money, but then he does Cape Fear, where he has to step into the shoes of Gregory Peck's character from the one, 40 years before that.
Yeah, and you love how they make cameos in here, and like you say, it's a loving horror mystery, done by Scorsese in tribute to the original, and people still bicker, which is the better version, just.
I mean, but it's like saying to somebody, all right, what's the better version of, this was like Scorsese's way of like, saying, all right, look, I'm going to do a noir movie, but it's going to be in color. I got De Niro, I got Nolte, I've got,
so much on display. Yeah.
I've got so much on display right now. Plus, I'm going to bring in some of the people from the original movie. So who does he bring in? He brings in Gregory Peck, Martin Balsam, and Robert Mitchum. And, it was like, holy crow, he kind of was like saying, all right, you guys come in and, we know the link between those two. And his character was kind of like, a guy caught between, do I kill this guy or do I let him go?
Yeah, questionable morals, because, even though he's breaking the law at the same time, he is dealing with someone who's just going to keep coming after him,
Yeah, and the thing I love about that is, it was almost like, I don't know, it was just a really good movie,
Just like a mini cat and mouse movies,
Yeah. Then he does Prince of Tides. He does Lorenzo's Oil, which I thought was amazing.
Okay.
It was a good movie. I've watched it a couple of times. It's really good. And then he does The Player.
Yeah, playing himself. Yeah.
Playing himself. But it's like funny because he's in the Robert Altman movie. That's Robert Altman's comeback.
Yeah.
And Robert Altman has waited, 12 years to do this?
Something like that, yeah.
Because, he did Popeye, and then, that fell apart. He does Popeye in 1980, and then it's like, then he's like, you got to wait a while. You're thinking, okay, what was he going to do between then and, then and now? It's like, all right, he does, what was he doing? I don't mean to get on the subject of Altman, but he does Popeye, Come Back to the Five and Dime, Jimmy Dean, Streamer, Secret Honor, Fool for Love, O.C. and Stiggs, Beyond Therapy, Vincent and Theo, and then he does The Player. So all of a sudden it becomes this comeback for him. And it was good for him to get that back, but it was good to have Nolte in that, kind of like have that, the face and the name thing with that going on,
Okay.
So, yeah. So, but Nolte's career has always been kind of like, he almost sank a little bit.
Yeah, it seemed like in the 2000s, other than those festival movies, no one was really talking about him. And I think just knowing that he was a drunk off screen definitely hurt. But at the same time, he's staying busy. Just couldn't market himself as the leading guy anymore.
He does the Hulk.
Yeah.
And that movie, I don't necessarily call it the Hulk movie. I just say it's a parallel universe Hulk, where he becomes the absorbing man. I
Right.
think that's what happens with
Something.
and and they had and I just remember like watching it, going, okay, how good is this going to be with him in it? And it was kind of like, eh,
I was definitely disappointed in theaters, and I took my uncle and father to see them. We were both like, "This is just a very messy attempt at a superhero movie, even though it's got some occasional, Hulk action. It's just very messy setup." But
it just didn't seem right. It's like his father was, the way we knew the origin story in that movie was, he's exposed to gamma rays, but then we find out in this one, it's, his father was exposing him to
some kind of
like
radiation or something weird.
and and it was like, oh my God, it's like, it was just like, Jesus. Oh, God damn it, And then he does that line. It's like, you better keep that temper of yours under control. And I'm like, and then they made him the absorbing man. My buddy was like telling me this. My friend Randy was like, this is such BS because, it's kind of like he rewrote, Ang Lee rewrote it. And like, they just said, okay, bring in whatchamacallit, bring him in, we're gonna make him like a megalomaniac, and it's just Jesus God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Time and budget later. It's just.
Thank you for changing everything, Ang Lee. Great director, but Jesus, you're terrible. Just don't give a guy who did like really good art movies, a comic book script. Don't.
Totally. And what's the other one that he often is just talked about? It's a hard to watch movie, but it is a good movie. I did with Paul Schrader. It's
Extreme Prejudice.
Similar. That's for Walter Hill. Still in the Walter Hill pocket. Pretty good role. But
I think
97. It's after he does Jefferson in Paris and the noir Mulholland Drive.
U-Turn.
Not U-Turn, but similar. Affliction. That's the one. Yeah.
Oh God, that is
Hard to watch because yeah, it's just very torturous, and it's just one of those like I know where it's going, and he gave the role justice, but man, not pleasant to watch.
Oh boy, that was like if you have had a dysfunctional family, that's the movie you don't want to watch.
Yeah.
Oh, Jesus, everybody's screwed up in this movie. Really? Yeah. Wow, I can't believe it. Yep. Okay.
He's also
let's play a game. What's it called? How screwed up is your family, and do you want to watch this movie? Oh, Jesus. Okay. Great
Right.
cast. You got Sissy Spacek, you got James Coburn, who won the Oscar that year. You got Nolte, you got Willem Dafoe, you got Mary Beth Hurt, you got see who else was in this. I'm looking this up as we go along, but it's like
it was Ellen Burstyn, but
movie.
Yeah.
It's like Jesus. It's just a very depressing movie to watch.
Yeah. Sure, Sissy Spacek. Yeah, she was in there. Christopher Fiedel, who's another Canadian actor, but it's. So then he follows it up with a brief part in Thin Red Line. He's in some movies that aren't as well received, like Trixie, Simpatico, and I could never get into The Good Thief, even though he did good with that role. But 2010s, I got to say, he was really scene stealing in stuff like The Company You Keep and the TV show Luck, Hate Ship, Love Ship, and especially Run All Night. And Angel Has Fallen, which is part of the Olympus Has Fallen franchise. He shows up as the estranged dad, and he pretty much just gets to kick a bunch of ass. And you're like, yeah, kind of makes sense. Why
All right,
wouldn't
you're
they?
back. Things,
Yeah. Parker was a fun kind of noir kind of movie they did that was based off, the same premise that, Donald E. Westlake novels are based on. So I was just like, hey,
I couldn't believe he was in the Ridiculous Six.
that or Gangster Squad. I'm just like, what were you doing in here? You're in the remake of Arthur. What the hell, dude? You do a voiceover and it's in of all movie duds. It's Noah. Jesus.
I don't remember that.
Yeah, he's like one of the voices. I'm like, I'm too busy laughing at just how, a pretentious filmmaker is making a giant biblical epic. He's like, why would you hire a atheist to make this movie? Which is already just
Who did he
outrageous.
play in that?
He plays the voice. What is it?
I want you to build an ark.
I want you to build an ark. This is God speaking. Yeah.
He plays Sam Yaza, who's I don't know who the hell that is. I think it's he's a fallen angel of the Apocryphal. Oh, okay, yeah, he's an angel. And just say, I got my wings. God, hand me a Budweiser, will you? God.
Yeah, I'll down this flood.
Yeah. I'll make
it
it flood as bad as I want tomorrow. God damn it.
I created a flood with Streisand. Oh.
Prince of Tide's my ass. Jesus.
Oh, man. So, would you say he's easier than most actors to introduce the next generations of silly people to?
Yeah,
He's just one of those cool cats. He's been in movies of every era.
Well, I was looking at his TV thing, his TV background, and I'm watching it, and I'm like, I can't believe the TV shows he did, because I'm like, looking, I'm like, he it's like, you think about it, he's in
Streets of San Francisco, guest starring playing a captain. Yeah,
he's in Griff. I remember that show for some reason. Cannon, Medical Center, Streets of San Francisco, Emergency Death Sentence, The Rookies.
I've seen a lot of the Rookies, but I haven't seen his episode. But I'm not surprised he's on it.
Chopper One. I'm trying to remember what that was for. Who was in that?
Another one of those just in between seasons.
Gunsmoke, Winter Kill, The California Kid, Barnaby Jones, a Quinn Martin production. Adams of Eagle Lake, Rich Man, Poor Man, Ultimate Rush, Luck. Okay, now we're going to Graves, Mandalorian, Paradise Lost. But it seems to me like if you watch him develop, he kind of like he goes from this innocent looking, like that whole, as I said before, the Harrison Ford, the Gary Busey's, that kind of stuff. And then he turns into like this gruff old man. He didn't have it. He never had a chill out point.
I think that's just it. I think the business was harsh to him, and acting was rewarding to him, keeping him alive. I never heard of any scandals or anything outrageous as say, Mickey Rourke, but there were moments where it just seemed like, okay, put him in your movie, of course.
There's been times where I think, if I remember, like he was growing his own garden.
I think so. Whether it was a weed or not, I don't know.
He did. I remember he did get busted for that drunk driving incident. Which has the famous photograph of him looking like he just, woke up and got out of bed.
Yeah. He's been cramped under a bridge for who knows how long. And I think that's just it. I think early days of the internet just harmed him and people just couldn't get past it. It was a Charlie Sheen moment.
You can imagine him being like the troll under the bridge with the blind Billy Goat's gruff. Who crosses my bridge?
Yeah, definitely a bit of that underlining tone.
Oh, I'm a troll. Give me my check. But
I'm sure there were a few movies, but I've never heard of anything where it got to the point where he was a Russell Crowe, where he would come up to set
No.
and they couldn't film anything one day because he was too drunk as a skunk. So
No, I don't think that ever happened. I think
he just
he
became
knows
too
how to be
big.
professional. No, he knows how to be professional. That's
Because
the
I've
thing.
never heard anything, so that says a lot. It's just that
No.
one image did damage.
Yeah, and that one image was kind of like, okay, Nick, you're growing your own stuff. I don't know what you're growing, but
It's not good.
he was growing like flaxseed and all that stuff. He was taking his own blood, checking his blood. I mean, this is what he does. He was really into healthy, and then you see a picture, you're like, yeah, boy, one too many Michelobes, hey, buddy, But he's kind of always struck me as like the leading man that could have been. Like, you've heard the story. He was supposed to be Superman.
I actually didn't know that. I've heard all kinds of people they cast for that, but that's
They wanted Nick Nolte. Donner said in an interview, if I remember it correctly, they were looking at Robert Redford to play Superman.
all the guys with the everyday kind of American male look.
But he couldn't see that. They wanted Nick Nolte, but I can't see him being Superman. His name came up in a lot of casting and stuff like that. They're trying to get him to do this. And he was saying, no, I don't want to do that. He's not someone who picks and chooses, but he's someone who says, look, I don't think that role's for me.
Yeah. And I'm kind of glad because, you would hate to see him being, typecast in just only superhero movies or just only playing supernatural performances, because that's just it. Once you're in that mold, that's all anyone wants to see play.
Well, the one I love is, he was, when he knew his age. That's the thing now. He wasn't trying to play young man anymore. He's now an older man. And when he did that movie, A Walk in the Woods, you kind of knew, you're kind of looking at it going, okay, Nick, we know you're old now. You're starting to get, you're starting to catch up with us now, even though I'm like in my 40s, I'm like, yeah, I remember when you were a young guy and, people, women were going after you. And now it's like, you're the old man of the house with the beard and the long hair. And you're like, God, I hate myself. That's what,
He just has that grizzled kind of look. And I mean, you're a Riff Trucks fan like me. So he does, they can't help it. They will try and always just make a joke about him. And they're like, we try to not be too mean spirited, but let's be honest, it's just like, we're going to make fun of it because he kind of asked for it. I'm like,
well, here's the thing I've always said. He's kind of like if Joe Don Baker had a better career.
Yes. We always go back to Joe Don Baker, but it's so true. It's just like Joe Don Baker is like the epitome of someone who was almost there and then just never did. It's just
well, we can't. I mean, I can't say anything bad about Joe Don Baker because the guy
I'm not
with,
trying to diss him or anything. I'm just saying he's so close, and then just
it's like
it just doesn't go that way for whatever reason.
He's almost at that point, and then it just goes, all right, go back to doing this movie. Okay, fine. Like I remember, if you remember, not to get off the subject of Nolte, but if you remember Heat of the Night, Carol O'Connor had bypass surgery. Joe Don Baker came on.
That was
the show was good with him on it.
People make fun of that storyline so much, and I'm like, well, that's just kind of what the show had to go on. Someone had to fill in as the sheriff. Who else would you cast who had that good old boy but heroic Southern nature? It would probably be Joe Don Baker.
Joe Don Baker. And then not only that, he does Eisenscheid, which I saw a couple times on repeats, which was a really good TV show.
Yeah.
Nolte should have been Nolte's career. Like, he does Down and Out in Beverly Hills. He's hilarious.
Yeah.
That movie is just hilarious. He's just the bum. He comes in, he jumps in, and the family just changes around him, and then he leaves the family, kind of like, okay, that's it. you know. But it was funny for him to do that, you know. I mean,
And
he's
that
working
just
with
opened up all those avenues because otherwise he would have just gotten just roles where he's, going out on a mission to kill someone or, out for justice as a, deputy. And it's like, yeah, he needed those just little in between areas to just make any use of his time as an actor.
Well, it's like, it's like he trying to put it right without putting it in the wrong perspective, but you got to realize, I think somebody just said, somebody said, okay, listen, there's a script, you're gonna like it, maybe you should, try it and see how it is. And he's like, all right, Mazursky gives it to him, and he's like, holy crap, I can't believe this is a good movie. And it was kind of like, all of a sudden, it was like, okay, it was like, okay, Nick Nolte can do comedy.
Right.
I mean, he did North Dallas 40. That's a great movie, but, it was like he did, it was like he could do his comedy. I wish he had done, like, Three Fugitives. That's a cute movie.
Mm-hmm.
I love that movie. It was actually a French movie, if I remember.
I think so. It was a remake of a French movie.
Yeah. But, I remember, I'm trying to think, Everybody Wins. That's the second one he did with Winger, with Deborah Winger.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yep.
There were some movies, he did, and they were giving him, Blue Chips, great movie. Does a really good job on it. Shows you what college basketball is like in real life. Because it's a business.
Right.
And it was kind of like I could never see him playing a coach in a movie. He did one movie, two movies where he was a coach. Blue Chips and Prince of Tides. But
one of those exceptions to the rule where somehow they made it work, even though he is a little too over the top for just a coach.
Yeah, but you think about it. He's getting up there now. He's like, I think he's 82 now.
Has to be, at least. Yeah.
Yeah, he's going to be 82, I think, this year, or 81. I don't know, but you got to think about it. He was, he's going to be one of those guys when it comes down to it. Never won an Oscar. Never really, but he had a good career.
Really?
You look at some of the movies. He was really great. He starts out Rich Man, Poor Man, puts him over to everybody. He was. When we were saying he was in that cadre of actors, I keep thinking it's like Martin Sheen, him, Gary Busey, James Caan.
Yeah, the tough guys who weren't Pacino or De Niro, but still kind of had a more marketable everyday man appeal.
I'm trying to think who else was in that era. Travolta, maybe.
Somewhat.
If Travolta hadn't done that movie, with Lily Tomlin. Yeah. Oh, woo. You want to talk about playing against type? Watch that movie.
Not in a good way.
Not in a, John, we got a surprise for you at the end. What? Well, you're gonna find out yourself. He does. Oh God, I saw Boy in the Plastic Bubble the other day. Ooh.
That's bad.
Well, he wound up in real life dating the mother, Diane Nyland, and she died of cancer in real life. Like with her in his arm, with him holding her. She was on 8 is Enough. She was the mom, and she died, and then they brought in Betty Buckley, and she was like, went over like, potatoes, French fries, she was just good, but I'm trying to think who else was in that. Who's doing that? But yeah, it's like that, that tough guy. Yeah, but you're like, the tough guy. I'm just happy he never sank into like, the the Amy, the Andy Sedaris stuff,
Yeah, or just doing just too many outrageous Italian movies that just only remind you of, oh, he could be doing so much better though.
He'll go over to Italy, film a bad spy movie, and then come back and be like, yeah, I'm on top. No, you're not. He never did that. He never did that. He knew what to do with his career, and that was the good thing. He didn't sit around and be like, yeah, I'll take this role, and if it stinks, I'll just blame the director. It wasn't like that with him. That's the good thing.
Yeah, he didn't wait for all the dominoes to just collapse. Basically, just tried out a few different things, and yeah, I will definitely applaud him for playing his cards how he did.
Yeah, and now he can. I think he's made enough money where he can rest now and take what he wants. Like when he did The Mandalorian, that was the big surprise.
Yeah, and even for a voiceover role, is like he did something with that voice as opposed to just do his gruff self. I gotta tip my hat to that because
he made that character likable, and he made that character identifiable too, because he gave that phrase, "This is the way."
This is the way, yeah.
He says that phrase, "This is the way." It wasn't Mando. It was
him, we often think it's the lead title character, and it's like, nope,
it was him. But yeah. I mean, it's just weird. I mean, his career is like, it was like hiding in plain sight. It was. I mean, he does Q&A, which we spoke of before. Gained 40 pounds for that role. He went into De Niro mode for that.
Yeah, he had to be on his levels somehow.
And he plays a cop, and I know I'm not being offensive to cops or anything. There were a lot of guys I knew whose dads were policemen, and that's what they're like. Gruff, mean, nasty. Not nasty, but I mean, they'll talk about things. You'll be like, like that.
Yeah.
I'm not offending policemen or anything. I just knew a couple guys that were like that, whose fathers were like that. So, but
they had kind of the gray kind of area where it's like they're just this second from being a loose cannon.
They're like 2 or 3 steps away from going, dropping the N-bomb while they're harassing while they're interrogating a suspect.
Yeah, just being boomers who want to get a stir out of someone. Just they're that stressed.
Yeah, but I remember, that movie was just, oh God, that movie was just, ooh, But he does Mulholland Falls. I wish they had given him like a Philip Marlowe
kind of role, yeah.
Like a Philip Marlowe or a Sam Spade or something like that.
Some modern day adaptation. Yeah.
Yeah, like how they did with Stacy Keach. Remember they did Mike Hammer?
That would have been awesome if you could do Mike Hammer, man. Yeah.
If he had done Mike Hammer, that would have been great. Or if he had done Philip Marlowe, like what Powers Booth did. Remember they did Powers?
Yes.
Did they wait? Did they take?
In that Casablanca show with Ray Liotta, that would have been fun. Yeah.
That would have been fun. But I keep thinking they should have had him do a detective role. If he had done like Dashiell Hammett. Remember that movie Hammett that came out a long time ago?
Kind of.
There's a movie called Hammett. It was about Dashiell Hammett, like if he solved a mystery. Yeah. Imagine if he had done that role.
Man.
Probably
way more effort. They probably would have him do that. Do a miniseries every 5 years.
You know what role he would have been great in? Ernest Hemingway.
Mm-hmm.
Think about that. If they had done a movie about Ernest Hemingway, the last years of his life, Nolte would have done it. I think Nolte would have sank his teeth into it.
That, or maybe just a famous like Van Gogh kind of painter. I could see him have kind of the gruff.
Well, he did. Remember, he did New York Stories.
Oh shit, that's right. He is in that one segment.
He's in that one segment as the painter, and that part always blows me out of the water. When he's playing, he's playing like I think like a Rolling Stone, and he's just painting like crazy. or when he's playing a whiter shade of pale, and he's just painting the shit out of everything. And I'm like, oh my god, I'm like, holy crap, this is a good part of the movie. Forget Woody Allen's.
Yeah.
Forget Woody Allen's part, because Woody Allen's part was hilarious. I love that part. His mother appears as a 40-foot ghost in the sky. But the one that he did where he played the painter who's losing his girlfriend, I think. Let me see if I can find this here. I'm trying to see what it was.
Either way, I mean, that's exactly it. It's just one of those roles where you're just like, hey, that there's a reason these guys kept working with this actor, is that they saw how they could just really just nail it, just really bring a different approach without just hamming it up or just playing too much to the camera.
Yeah, and he doesn't do that. He doesn't overact. I've never seen him overact like crazy like that,
Mm-hmm.
So that's the good thing. So that's what his career is. He never overacted. He never took a job he didn't like.
Right.
And
anyone who's just hating on him is often just, making fun of what they're familiar with in, the media.
Yeah. They just see that one part, but they don't see the whole picture,
Follow us on the web on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. The podcast is available on Podbean, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Anchor, Apple, and anywhere else podcasts are available. Feel free to review our show and leave comments on any of those sites. Thanks a million for listening.
It's a jacked up review show.